Hey,
Can
what's
you
up,
join
Drew?
us on episode 75?
That's right there.
75. Wow.
Yes, that's
Yep,
right there.
we've been
Awesome.
doing this a while.
Yeah,
Well,
we've
thanks
been
for
doing
having me
this.
on, guys.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of episodes. We did music episodes. We did TV episodes, movies, recap previews, and other discussions there. We had a lots of fun there. We had a lot of interesting topics there. A lot of stuff going on the side there. A lot of shit there. So, welcome to the show, Drew.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. We talked about this last week. It was so.
Yeah, it
Been
was.
able to
Yeah,
make the last one. Be able to make this one.
yeah, absolutely there.
Cool.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're doing A to Z list of the prog rock bands, every single one that exists out there. Because when they think
Well,
of people,
no, I've skipped a few.
oh,
Yeah, there's ones, bro. The list I
my
look
bad.
at, I mean, there's ones from Japan. I mean, all the world, and they're names like regular names,
All right.
but
Hmm.
Grishenhold, Ginzan, Gungang, like all kinds of stuff like that. I never
That's
heard
true.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see a name I can't pronounce. Okay, let's go to the next one.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't really know that the band Ambrosia was a prog band when they first started out because we only know that song "How Much I Feel," greatest, biggest part of me. You're the only one, which are kind of like soft rock staples.
Well, yeah, their first three albums were largely progressive, and they kind of decided, or the record company kind of decided, you guys need to do some pop.
Yeah, and which they did very successfully with the song "How Much I Feel," which today still gets played on, one of these romantic, love programs that they play there, whether it's Delilah or that show back in Michigan called Pillow Talk.
Well, I won't knock them for doing that because they did it well. They did a good job.
I'm not, I'm not knocking them either because when you listen, if you ever been to any of the situations depicted in that song in particular, it kind of tugs at your heart a little bit there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there.
absolutely.
Yeah, it is. So, okay, now we're on to the G's here, and we already mentioned one of the bands there at the top of the program there. Actually, before we went live
We
there.
did an hour on that group.
Yeah, absolutely there. No, but I think I'll let Arkhill do the G's rightfully so there.
Well, let's go with Peter Gabriel.
Oh yeah,
We've heard of him, haven't we?
absolutely, the former
Yeah,
frontman of Genesis.
I was gonna say if we're gonna mention Genesis, you got to mention Peter Gabriel.
Absolutely, because and a lot of people don't realize, especially the people today, that the Peter Gabriel from back then was one of the most interesting on-stage characters ever. I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
he was. All the costumes, the get-ups he would have, he was, like, pretty theatric with his performances. At one point, I don't know if anybody today knows that he one time, just to be different, shaved kind of like a short streak on the top of his head there. In fact, it's very visible on some of the band publicity photos on this stage here. You look at Watcher from the Skies live from 1973, and you know what I'm talking about, including one of the costumes that Gabriel was wearing during that period.
The cape with the funny looking hood.
Yeah,
Most of
absolutely.
this progressive stuff. I mean, could you technically say like progressive rock was in the '70s or was it more of an '80s thing?
Well, it's more
Oh, prog
70s.
rock's been around mostly from the '70s forward.
Yeah,
There are groups in the 2000s that are prog.
yeah.
Well,
So,
something else to mention from Peter Gabriel, just talking about how unique of an individual he was, even when you get into the age of music videos. Just harken back to the Sledgehammer music
oh
video.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That
or
video
shot.
was bizarre, and
Absolutely.
Big Time wasn't far off from it. It was almost like they were carbon copies of each other, if I remember right.
Yeah.
One of my favorites from him was "Shock the Monkey" from 1982. That was one freaky ass video, kind
could,
of when
could
you
you
look at.
imagine a song called "Shock the Monkey" could go to number one on the mainstream charts?
Yeah, I know. Well, it was a big hit on the radio at that time. There, it was much massive
Yeah,
played on MTV.
yeah, hit the top 40, and yeah, got a lot of plays on MTV, and that's what, especially in the early '80s, that's what drove a lot of bands or acts, even ones from the '70s, looking for a little bit of a revival because he hadn't had a top 40 hit on his own
Yeah.
until "Shock the Monkey." That
Well,
was his first,
Yeah,
top
he
40
kind of
hit.
he kind of came close with Salisbury Hill.
yeah. And
and
then
Games Without Frontiers.
yeah,
But
which was yeah, and of course, one of his other songs, Biko, written about Stephen Biko, the anti-apartheid activist, still is a concert favorite to this day. Whenever he gets to the section of Biko, Biko, everybody shouts along with that song there.
yeah, and of course there was this big one, In Your Eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Your Eyes, that's been redone over the years. Wonderful song. I mean, not to take away anything else that he's done, but In Your Eyes, just one of those timeless hits that, 100 years from now, people will still be remaking and re-singing.
And let's not forget his
Absolutely.
soundtracks. He did two unique soundtracks. One for the movie Birdie from 1985, and for the Last Temptation of Christ, which came out in 1990. It actually came out in 1989 there, and that was one of the first records off of his label called Real World Records, which distributes world music from Asia, India, Japan, you name it. Africa, France. You name it there. He was turning lots of people on to world music. And he was one of the key elements in the Amnesty International Conspiracy of Hope tours. Many artists, including the Police, U2, all the others, many others were participants on many of those tours there. At one point, they had New Kids on the Block around, I guess it was in '89 or 1990 or in between, somewhere before that, I think it was. Because, I don't know how they got on the tour, but then again, they must have been believers of the same philosophies,
I was not aware of that. Interesting.
Yeah, no, it was interesting there. I was like, whoa, interesting when I saw the MTV report there.
Hmm, strange.
Yeah,
And of course we mentioned Genesis already.
absolutely there.
Yeah, I mean that would be another hour-long show to dive back into it. But since I wasn't on that show, if I could just make a couple of
Sure.
just for passing
Yes.
remarks, I mean, talk about again another band that has reinvented themselves over the years, and then fell into the age of the music video, and were able to become even bigger from that. And it's without getting into too much detail, like Land of Confusion, I remember watching that music video as a kid.
Yeah.
And although I was slightly freaked out, I couldn't stop watching it, and I learned to really enjoy it over time. And then I Can't Dance. It's such a silly video, but especially for someone who was under the age of 10, just really an entertaining thing. And it's just sad to hear that Phil Collins now is barely able to pick up drumsticks.
I know,
let
it's
alone play.
sad, the fact that I don't know how he got that condition. It was a nerve damage or something like that. The man didn't do any accidents. He wasn't a drug addict. He was not an alcoholic there. But I don't know how. But then again, shit
Our
can
bodies
happen.
give it out different times.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's okay, but then again, but it is sad because I would hope in someday the original Genesis would get back together and show all the people today, hey, this Genesis existed before the top 40 Genesis. But sadly, it
Yeah,
won't
because
be able
actually
to.
Phil Collins was in the original Genesis.
Yeah, he was a drummer, and what a damn good drummer he was.
Oh, he was great.
But and you can't ignore the fact that he became the lead singer while playing drums. One of the most difficult things you could do. And in the mid '80s, he was double dipping on radio. He was carrying a solo career while doing Genesis, to the point where, even though I was too young at the time, speaking with my parents, they were like, it got to the point where people couldn't stand listening to his voice anymore, that he was on the radio so much.
Yeah, he was a workaholic, man. He did
Yeah.
he also was a part of a project called Brand X on a number of records. He also did work with Eric Clapton, Howard Jones. He did a lot of production on playing on drums on this track, that track there. He was all over the place, including appearing on Miami Vice.
Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to sound silly or nothing, but since you did say Peter Gabriel as a solo, well, he was a solo artist. I was gonna say, would you put Geddy Lee in the G category?
I'd put him in the L's, but I don't think he had a solo career, did he?
No, he did have
No,
one.
but-
He had one solo record. I think it was in the before the 2000s. I think it was called My Favorite
You would put
Headache.
it on the last name.
Yeah.
You would put it on the L's, right?
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, basically, an individual be under their last name, the group will be under, well, their name.
Right.
Yep.
And as far as Phil Collins playing drums, one song that'll really point out how good he was is one on Lamb Lies Down on Broadway called Fly on the Windshield.
Yeah.
That one is a great little number.
Yeah. I remember listening to that album while I was at my old job there a couple of years back. It's like, wow, this is pretty hard-hitting, a couple of hard-hitting songs on that record there.
Yeah. Okay, next group. I want to know if any of you ever heard of them, because I have. A Gentle Giant.
I have, definitely.
I don't know about
They were huge in the 70s in the prog rock scene. Never really had any singles to speak of. But
I've only heard of the name myself there and saw some of the album covers, but I haven't heard any of their music. Definitely got to send me a couple of their links there.
Yeah, one song in general is called Alucard, which we all know that's Dracula backwards.
Ah,
y'all doing is most would y'all say most of these progressive rock bands, these most British bands?
Almost all of them are British, although a few of them you'll find from Germany, Italy.
Besides like your Rushes, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Canada, USA.
Very few from the USA, but the ones that are there are impactful.
Wait, would you consider Boston a prog rock band or no?
Not really there, I'd be honest with you.
Semi, because they do have some prog elements, but they're more of a
basic rock and roll. Yeah.
Arena rock. Well,
Yeah.
no, they're not even that.
Because they're not playing arenas no more. They play small arenas or theaters nowadays.
Well, yeah, they're not as big as they used to be.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You could pretty much attribute, I don't know, even like hard rock to them in a way, at least for the time period. It wouldn't be hard rock today, obviously. It's classic rock, but, for its time period, hard to progressive, you could say arena rock in a way, yeah. However you want to put it. Kind of has
Foreplay Long Time was definitely progressive.
Yeah, it's true. A piece called The Journey from the second record, that was some progressive just as well there. But a lot of their stuff was basically, uplifting arena rock. Songs like Don't Look Back, Don't Be Afraid, a lot of...
More Than a Feeling.
Absolutely there. Peace of Mind, Let Me Take You Home Tonight, and this... My personal favorite from Boston was the Third Stage record there. Tracks from Walk On was pretty good there, even though it had a different singer there, which was kind of unique.
Yeah. Boston was kind of started out as a studio band. They were more of they kind of like Steely Dan, where they were more studio oriented, and they had to kind of rush a group together to tour. Because Steely Dan was actually Fagan Becker.
Yeah. And now it's just
studio musicians.
They were, I guess they had a couple of guests, like one of their well-known musicians who played with them was a guy named Jeff Baxter, better known as Skunk. He was the second well-known guitar player to play sitting on the stool next to Robert Fripp of King Crimson. And we cannot forget Michael McDonald's backup vocals on the song Peg, which is still a favorite to this day.
I'm surprised no one mentioned Amanda when naming all the songs from Boston.
Oh, yeah, that's hits, right. That was one big. Yeah, that song was all over the radio. All over the radio. That whole album was all over the radio, to be exact.
Third Stage.
Yeah, it was. I say it's still one of their best today,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It wasn't too long after Amanda that We're Ready came up right behind that and, Cool the Engines also. So, you had a whole slew of radio hits coming out of that.
That's why Third Stage seemed prog, because it kind of took you on a journey. It started out with, let's get this thing rolling and rocking and stuff. And as it got to the end, it kind of cooled the engines.
Drew, do you have
it had a concept going on.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, basically. Now, Drew... Keith or Barber?
Wikipedia guy. How you doing, brother?
Keith?
Oh, great.
Okay, that was... okay.
So Wikipedia guy, Drew. You know what I'm saying? He's on with us every show.
Gotcha. What were you going to ask, Earl?
There is a
He
Casey
forgot.
is raw in my chat there saying, Dr. Earl, better keep your eye on Drew.
That's probably
Why?
him. Yeah. He
Oh.
likes to mess with me.
Oh, yeah, I know. No,
We mess back and forth with each
I
other.
know.
I've seen
Yeah.
it.
Well, he could join the call if he wishes to, if he likes to.
Oh,
Definitely.
there you go, Casey. But yeah, a third stage, that was kind of, a long time in the making because they had, went on and did their own solo thing after the second album. And
Very
second
Goodrow
album's
did.
escaping me right now. But and the fact that they came back bigger than ever, you see that sometimes with bands where it's like they don't have an album for 8, 10, 12 years and then come back and it just really hits the ground running, so to speak.
Yeah, and also not to forget the lawsuit that Tom Schultz had, with the Schultz being the leader and chief design, the songwriter, guitarist, producer, and engineer of all those albums. He had a lawsuit against CBS Records because CBS was like really being dictators to him, trying to force him to get that third record out there, whatever the third rate or
Right.
second rate, they wanted that album out now because the thing is, Schultz likes to take his time to make sure everything on that particular track, every song on that album is pitch as perfect, That's
Well, that
what he
was the
wants.
main reason of the delay, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He wants to make sure, and plus other things like not having a safety copy of one particular track. Basically, in the liner notes and in one interview, he said that he was listening to the playback of Coup de Engines, and the tape just stops right in the middle of the track because it became sticky, and he had to make sure that that wouldn't happen again. I guess he had to operate a couple of things here, a couple of simple objects and devices. He had way too much wow in them there at one point.
Brown did. Who's that replacement lead singer? Do you know who that is?
Boston. I don't really know there, but I know
Obviously,
Current age, like currently?
no, like 'cause
currently.
the original one passed away.
Yeah, Brad
They
Dell.
replaced
Yeah.
They still have obviously the original guitarist. He leads that band.
Tom
Awesome.
Schultz. Yeah, he's the only
Right.
one left there. The drummer Sib. He passed away. Barry Goodrow's doing something in there.
This was recent when the lead singer passed away. Drew.
Yeah,
this was like
2007.
right.
Okay.
So it wasn't like he passed away in the 70s or 80s or 90s or whatever. I mean, it was just
No.
because they didn't really. I mean,
2007, yeah, I see it.
what did they really do? And like, we need to get back into
Yeah, the
into,
prog rock list there. Yeah.
the gold trip, whatever the band was.
Yeah, you guys are supposed to be on G's and we're
But
doing
see,
just one last
Brown,
thing.
Yeah, we do.
Brown,
That's
that's what I'm
okay.
trying
There's
to
no
tell you,
reason
though,
that we
like,
can't skip around a little bit.
when we
know.
know when
We don't
people
really
know
mind.
bands, like we know them more. Like these other bands, we don't really know. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
Yeah, I
Chris.
mean, you still got to cover the letters if that's the name of the game.
Well,
I mean,
I know.
not only that, it's introductions to people that maybe they'll be curious enough to go check them.
Yeah, definitely.
one last
Go
one
ahead.
last thing I want to put on Boston, just to put a bow on it, is it's funny that CBS did that lawsuit on them, and Schultz won in every way imaginable, and they went to MCA and saw greener pastures. It's like, wow, fuck you, CBS.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like they just screwed themselves out of that whole deal.
Yeah. Well, the guy behind CBS, Walter Yetnikoff, he was a prick a lot of times there. I remember Cheap Trick wanted to get out of their contract there with them, and basically they kind of made it hell for that band
Right.
a couple times there, Didn't really promote them that much, and that's why they the popularity they diminished in the 1980s there after Live at Budokan.
Yeah, what record companies seem to have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot for some reason.
Yeah.
You get too greedy.
Absolutely, they want the button, they want the money, they want the stars, and they try to keep that shit going as long as they can, even if it means making the next single sound like the first one.
Right. Check out Hootie and the Blowfish or Nickelback if you want to see that.
Absolutely.
Good examples.
Yeah, two good examples there.
Okay, next group is deep in prog circles, but it's actually a pretty good group with like 10 albums. It's a group by the name of Glass Hammer.
I don't think I heard of that.
But they're kind of big among the prog groups, as far as groups that, gee, you should listen to them.
Interesting. You know what, Ark, you should send the links. You know how you like to send me links? You should send some to YR and Deruchis as well on their Skype accounts there. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this one. When I heard you say Glass, I thought you were going to say Glass Tiger, and I'm like, they weren't prog rock.
Yeah, they were Canadian pop. You know?
Right. But no, and they're actually more recent as I looked them up from the 90s.
Yeah. No, it's from the 80s. Glass Tiger are.
No, I'm talking about Glass Hammer.
Oh, my bad. I thought because this is the first time I heard of them. I figured they were a 70s band at first there.
Yeah, no,
I got some Dr. Earl.
Nice.
Okay, next one I'm pretty sure you've heard of. Government Mule.
Yeah.
Yes.
James Hetfield from Metallica digs these guys. I know Guitar World, did an interview. I guess it's a joint interview with the lead guitarists from that band and Hetfield as well there. And Hetfield walked in. He was like, "Man, it's an honor to meet you." This and that there. So you could tell Hetfield was a big fan, by the way he introduced himself there, according to that interview there.
What I know about this band is not a whole lot, but I know my brother-in-law has gone to a bunch of their concerts because aren't they kind of in the realm of like jam band also?
Something like that, I guess.
Pretty much, yes. And they combine elements of blues, hard rock, and jazz fusion.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if he still does, but back in the day, he used to, every time they come to town, he'd go and he'd try and drag everyone out there with him. And, we went, I think I went once or twice to see him, but I just don't know. I don't know any of their songs, don't know enough about them. It's one of those things like they got a cult following. It's like the Grateful Dead, with the exception of a couple of songs. You didn't hear them on the radio, so you just had to be in the know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a pretty good description of them, actually.
All right. Okay, and are we still on the G's? Hello? Ark? Ark?
Drew?
What?
No, we can just keep the conversation rolling. Maybe he had.
I'm sorry, I must have pushed the wrong button or something.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say there, yeah.
Or something around me pushed the wrong button.
I love how YR says Drew, like I'm going to be able to help with the G's of progressive rock here. Go ahead, Art.
Kind of tempted to skip over a few of them. I've kind of heard of them, but they're really obscure.
Mm-hmm.
There's like Gryphon. Gryphon.
Gryphon?
They're a 70s Gryphon. They're a 70s British band.
Yeah, nothing here on that.
No, I never heard of them myself.
Medieval folks thing. They kind of did that bit.
It's kind of like Renaissance folk. Kind of similar to Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
See there.
Okay, let's just go ahead and go on to the H's.
All right.
Peter Hamill.
Peter Hamill, and I heard the name a couple times. I think you mentioned it to me, Ark, in the past there.
Lead singer of Van de Graaff Generator.
For a minute, I thought when you first mentioned the name, I thought it was Mark Hamill's brother at first.
I think he's a little older.
And next one I got Happy the Man.
Happy the
I
Man?
just like the name.
Oh, Happy the Man?
Happy the Man.
Okay. Like a Happy the Man for this item here.
A highly virtuosic 1970s symphonic prog band.
Oh.
So this has nothing to do with the Genesis song, does it? This isn't like a tie-in to what we were talking about earlier or anything, is it?
No.
Sorry, I had to make the funny correlation.
I like it. Okay, then we got a band that you and I have discussed before.
Yep.
Hawkwind.
Oh yeah, this is where Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead got his start in. He of course was a bass player. They did a lot of space, a lot of prog stuff there. But I remember two songs from them: the song Motorhead and the song Silver Machine, which Lenny had was did the vocals for there. And uniquely, they had a dancer on which danced it on stage wherever they played. I guess her name was Stacia, I think it was there.
Yeah, and they call them a long-running band. They aren't kidding. That group has about 40 albums.
Yeah, that's true there.
Wow.
I think one of the members, Nick Turner, I guess he's got some sort of ambient techno, ambience kind of stuff going on there. I guess I remember hearing his name around the 90s, and he was signed to a label called Cleopatra Records out of L.A. there. I guess he was doing some sort of prog, ambient, prog, I'm not too sure. I got to look it up on YouTube to see what he's doing there. But I've heard a few stories about this guy there. And of course, Yep.
Is there sound anything similar to what Motorhead did, or would Lemmy look out of place in this band?
They were well. Let me read their description.
Yeah.
Okay.
A long-running space rock band with science fiction lyrics and some crossover with heavy metal. So there will be heavy metal there.
Yeah.
Because Motorhead is pretty heavy. So Silver Machine.
Sounds like what all the hippies were listening to then, just from that description.
Yeah, they've been around since the 70s.
But yeah, it fits the timeline. Hey, you got to get your start somewhere, and then of course you formulate your own style over time.
Yeah, sure there,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, there you are, Keith.
Yes, I was on another call. Did you talk about Led Zeppelin 4 yet?
We will get to it later on in the show there.
Later, after
Towards the end.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next group. I just like their name, and I'm going to have to look them up because I don't know anything about them. Henry Howe.
Huh? Henry Howe?
Howe.
That's the name of the band. Well,
That's
obviously,
I thought it was the name of a candy bar at first.
He does sound like one. But their description is they're a highly experimental and political 1970s British band. And I'm kind of like, that sounds interesting, actually. I might have to check into them.
All right, there.
Just because I like their name.
Interesting time period to be political in your music, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you're in England, U.S., or wherever. The whole world was changing at that time, so... Yeah.
Everything was changing.
Yeah. Then I got Steve Hillage.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember I mentioned this guy in the last episode there. He was the guitarist for the band Gong. And he's basically, I don't know what kind of religion he practices, but I think it's some sort of a Buddhism or something like that. I'm not too sure what kind of religion he's into, but he did a lot of that kind of themes in some of his solo work. He's also did guitar work for the Orb on one of their earlier albums, UF4 to be exact. He played on one of their lead-off tracks, Blue Room, on that particular album there. And I guess he's something like another version of Robert Fripp, but more spiritually, I guess.
Yeah. Then we just might as well get to another guitarist.
Yep.
Steve Howe.
I am. Absolutely. From Yes and Asia and GTR.
That's a heck of a resume there.
Bro,
Yeah.
we're really going back.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I remember the band Yes. What was that album from Yes? It was their big one. It was the a zip code for where they came from.
90125. That was the catalog.
Is that what it
number.
is? I thought it was. Is it really? That's the record number.
No,
Brown,
I think Brown. Keith, look that up real quick. The
Okay.
90125.
He's our Jamie, like on the.
But I believe that's the number. The
How do
records
you
have
spell
numbers
that?
on them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
the
just-
catalog
1,
number.
2, 5.
No,
You want to spell it out?
Oh no, I thought Lyra said some
N-I-N.
J.
Yes. Spell
Yes.
out the yes.
90125 album.
It's an album by Yes. On the album, it has "Owner of a Lonely Heart." Hold on, it can happen. Changes, cinema, leave it.
Cinema.
Our song,
Mm-hmm.
our song, "City of Love," Hearts.
The
Didn't really
question
understand
was
what we
where
were
the
looking
name came from.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Well, either way, that album, I remember my parents played the hell out of it, and I'll tell you, I will never forget the song "Owner of a Lonely Heart" thanks to them. But
Yep.
I remember them just putting that album on repeat. I don't know why, because they put all their albums on repeat, whatever band they pick. But for some reason, Yes sticks out to me.
And it's funny
got
'cause of all their albums, it's probably my 6th or 7th favorite.
Yeah.
90125, named after the label's catalog number for the record,
Yep.
has a slightly different sound, partly because of the infusion of South African musician Trevor Rabin, guitars, keyboards, vocals, and the work of producer Trevor Horn.
Yep.
Rabin's Owner of a Lonely Heart topped the charts as the album's biggest hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that shows what I know. I mean, I guess 90210 is so close to that number that my mind always just went to, it's the area or zip code or whatever.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have gotten confused just as well, dude.
Yeah,
A lot of people have.
Well, there you go. That was a bit of a spin-off of what we were originally talking about, because we were talking about their guitarist, Steve Howe.
Yeah.
So.
Who was incredibly prominent on my favorite albums, the Yes album, Fragile, and the one that followed.
Later on there?
No, in between, Close to the Edge.
Ah. I'm just throwing out other albums that he played on, like the one I just mentioned, and Going for the One.
Yeah.
He was also on Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, Frankie Goes Hollywood.
Yeah, the title cut for that album there.
Yeah, can you believe that? That's such an odd, bizarre,
Well, some guitarists did that. I mean,
hey.
Jimmy Page was a session musician for ages.
Yeah.
I was about to say Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page did guitars for Puff Daddy, so nothing's off the
Yeah,
table.
they worked together for that Godzilla soundtrack in '98 there.
And you had Michael
amazing.
Jackson with
Eddie Van
Michael
Halen.
Jackson had Eddie Van Halen, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see some of the credits on some of these guys, it's like, okay.
Hell, Eddie Van Halen played on the Nicolette Larson song, uncredited.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm trying to think of the name of the Nicolette Larson song. She did a Neil Young cover. What was it?
What's it called there? Let me look it up there for you guys there.
Because she covered a Neil Young song. I
Yeah,
think.
that was it. Lot of Love.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So Steve Howe. Oh, and I guess so with Yes. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Well, I don't put a lot of credence in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but if you're going to say that it exists and it's real, Yes definitely belongs there.
For sure. Yeah, all the bands and groups that they're putting in now, it's like, why? But yeah, Yes is one that actually deserves it.
Well, didn't they just put Carole King? And I'm sitting there going, Carole King? She should have been in there years ago.
Right. But instead we've been, sneaking in people. Gosh, I remember, was it 2019 or 2020 was one of the most enraging ones.
Bro, didn't they induct like the Foo Fighters this year, but they don't even have Iron Maiden or Judas Priest.
I know. I don't know why. Because a lot of those, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is all biased when you look at it. Because
the fucking Go-Go's are in there now.
Oh gosh, why? I have no clue.
There was like one. Sabbath's in there, correct or no?
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
There's one. There's a major band. There's one major band, like a big one
Tull.
that's not in there. Big
Jethro
one that's
Tull.
not in there.
Mm-hmm.
Metallica's in there.
Yep, they are.
So I when they announced the inductees this year, not to go too far off topic, but I'll make it quick. When they announced it, I retweeted it, and I said, given the direction the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has gone, and I mean, let's be kind of fair that a lot of these styles of music wouldn't exist without rock and roll as the origin, but to see names like Jay-Z, the Go-Go's, even Foo Fighters, I mean, they're past the 25-year mark. You gotta, give them their due. So it's like, it's not a horrible list. Tina Turner, even though not truly rock and roll, you can't deny her accomplishments. So
Madonna.
Yeah. How in the world did she get there? And Carole King had to wait till now.
I know she probably
Todd
sucked with it.
Rundgren should have been in there a long time ago, and he's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
What about Foghat?
You asking if
That
they're in
should
there?
be good, but they'll never make it.
I know, yeah.
Or
That's sad.
Savoy Brown.
Yeah, I know. Which is the thing. But then again, it's the same thing. Well, I don't know. It's the Rock and
Well,
Roll
from what
Hall
I
made as a
understand,
joke.
Well, from what I understand, the administrator, director, whatever, hates prog and metal.
Oh, really? That explains why.
That's why you're not seeing a lot of these groups that should be there.
Yeah, that pisses me off because that's allowing bias to overcome your duties.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, that guy should just be eliminated there.
Well, I think he actually retires this year, but it could be wrong.
I hope so, because
then maybe Jethro Tull will finally make it.
Yeah.
I mean, Lordy, they've released 40 albums.
Yeah.
I think they've made a contribution.
Yeah, they should have.
On to the Eyes.
All right.
The only one here I've heard of is the Incredible String Band.
I remember hearing that name a couple times in the past there.
And
nothing for me on that one. Sorry.
Trying to see if there's any others that I even... Well, there's not many in the Eyes anyway.
Yeah, it's true there.
And obviously Iron Butterfly wouldn't be there, but they're not prog anyway.
Yeah.
And if we move on to J, we've got Jane, early 1970s krautrock band.
From Germany?
Well, that's why they're krautrock.
Oh, yeah. Ah.
Sorry about that.
You got me there on that one. Yeah.
And then the big one in the J's is Jethro Tull.
Oh, yeah, who we just mentioned.
They started in the late 1960s.
Yep. And one of their early guitar players would later go on to be in Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi. Look at the performance at the Rock and Roll Circus movie there. He's in there with them.
Yeah, and they definitely developed into a highly prog band. Look at Thick as a Brick.
Mm-hmm. A Passion Play, Aqualung, Mitchell in the Gallery, War Child.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff they put it out throughout the years.
Well, they've got like I said, they got over 30 albums.
Yeah.
So somebody's buying their stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, countless gold and platinum albums. So, I mean, yeah, it's obviously more in the 70s and 60s.
Yeah, a lot of their big stuff was the 60s.
And I guess the Passion Play album just got remixed and it got reissued not so long ago. I guess one of the guys from Porcupine Tree had a hand in it there.
Steve Wilson.
All right,
Yeah.
so in about, I forget what the year, but if you're a true rock fan, which this may be kind of a hot take, but didn't Metallica lose like a Grammy to them or something?
Yes,
or MTV?
yes. Back in it was the Grammys in early 1989. The people were predicting.
Metallica was supposed to win, right?
Yeah, well, because And Justice for All was all over the radio. Well, not necessarily the radio, but it was on MTV for the first time officially. But there was a lot of talk. The album was getting a lot of praise, a lot of respect, and they were just surprised that Jethro Tull overshadowed that and got the award. And a lot of people were booing at the awards ceremony when that was announced.
A lot of the reason for that, I think, is it was kind of like for their past more than anything else. They went so many years, putting out great stuff and never getting recognition. And I guess the Grammy people decided, we should recognize them.
But yeah, and to kind of echo what you're saying there is, I remember even when I was getting old enough to know who Metallica and music and everything was, they were kind of the bad boys. It's like Slipknot 20 years ago. Right. Like everyone's like, oh my God, the demon rock. And now, they're a lot more widely accepted.
Yeah.
And I think it was that way in the 80s for Metallica. They were this underground garage band, however you want to put it. And then, when MTV ran with them, I think the rest of the music industry was like, ugh, really? What are we doing?
Drew, you were like, what, like 11, 12, 13, like middle school when Metallica was in the 80s?
I would have been, I was born in 83, so I would have been 6 years old, or 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, a little younger than
that.
Yeah, I was a teenager when they first came out. I still remember when I first heard about them on the a Warren radio station out, a high school radio station out of Warren, Michigan, and the songs they were playing for that album was "Kill 'Em All," Metal Militia, Four Horsemen. That's how I first heard of them, you know. And I was a teenager around that time. I think it was about 16 or 17 there.
Yeah, so I mean, but I was always around music as a kid, and I even knew at a young age. I'd say by the time the Black Album came out, I'd already kind of known their past. I'd listen to my parents; they played the music and talk about it and that, and you know, I just knew. And you could even watch some early things on MTV back then, and you know, they'd really push them hard. But then also, you know, the radio was just starting to really, you know,
embrace
warm up to them, I guess. Yeah, there's so much music that should have been on the radio in those first 3 albums, 4 if you count Garage Days, that never really got played on radio until years later when it was already an afterthought.
Well, radio for the most part, especially nowadays, wants to play what's safe.
Yeah.
You know, mom friendly, kid friendly, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They don't want to take any chances.
Yeah.
There's always a market for edge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mom rock, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the mom rock I remember was either Sheryl Crow, Blues Traveler, you know, all the Michael Bolton stuff there.
Three Doors Down.
Or Creed.
Yeah.
Or Daltrey, Chris Daltrey's
Nickelback.
group. Oh, gosh.
Wow, Nickelback's been mentioned twice tonight. That's a problem.
No, but Drew,
Drew,
didn't you used to like, it was one band you said that you were like, it was either them or Creed or something. I think it wasn't like you were like, oh, not tonight, but I think I heard you say, like, you admit that, like, you, like, you know, Cronin show or something, that you don't mind Nickelback or something. Am I right?
No, I mean, I don't hate them as much as everyone else does. I do think they're very, very
overdone,
repetitive in their music. Yeah, well, and overdone too, but very repetitive in their music. I mean, other than like a song like Never Again, they never really changed their sound, at least for the radio.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you about the album tracks because I didn't go as far as buying a fucking album, but as far as the singles goes, Never Again is the only one that really jumps out at me as having its own original sound. And the lyrics were great. I mean, the contents of those lyrics weren't great, but the song itself, I really enjoyed Never Again.
Yeah. But then again, you know, the record label has got, like, you got to put out another ballad. You got to put out this ballad for this album because the ballads keep the listeners. They did the same thing to the band Chicago throughout the 80s there. You got to either put out Hard to Say I'm Sorry, follow that up with Your Inspiration, and Hard for Me to Say I Love You and stuff like that. It's a repetitive process, but after a while, it gets to stagnate. It becomes boring, you know, and it's repetitive and it gets boring.
In Chicago's case, it makes you want to go back to their first album, Chicago Transit Authority, which, by the way, that was prog.
Yeah.
Highly prog.
Yeah. Very prog
and if
there.
you play that album and then follow it up with some of the stuff you were just talking about, it's like, what happened? That's 2 different bands. Nope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In fact, you know, I think I remember you showing you a clip, a live performance of the Chicago Transit Authority.
Man.
Yes,
right.
Did you ever saw that?
Yeah.
Nice, cool. Yeah.
What about the flute with Jericho?
The what?
Uh-huh.
The who?
I don't know. Wyatt told me to say it.
Oh,
say
geez.
what?
Oh, geez.
Oh, and you did it?
The flute with Jericho. The flute with Jericho.
The flute with Jericho?
Oh, you talking about Jethro Tull?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jethro Tull, yeah.
This was a wrestling reference.
I was going to say, I was like, what?
Which was kind
You
of...
just made the flute.
I know, man.
He wanted you to ask about the flute.
I don't even know what I'm talking about right now.
Neither do
And
we.
yet you come with it. All right. No, the leader for Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson, played the flute. That was his instrument of choice.
Yeah. And it was unique because hardly at the time, rock bands were like, didn't really think a flute would be a perfect for rock and roll. But then again, King Crimson had a violin player named David Cross later on in their career.
And actually, the Moody Blues had a regular member by the name of Ray Thomas who played the flute.
Yeah, a couple of times there, but he was mostly a percussionist with the tambourine at times.
Well, this happens every time a new instrument's introduced to music. I mean, what would the 80s have been without the synthesizer? What would Pound Cake have been without the fucking drill, you know?
That's true, yeah.
I read it wrong. It's Jethro. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of figured there, yeah.
Well, I caught on to it when I heard the flute in Jericho. It was close enough.
Yep.
And speaking of violin players, our next group is Kansas.
Ah, yeah.
Hey,
there you go. Yep. And we did this special on them a couple of times, about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we did. In Kansas.
Yeah.
I remember their live album, One from the Road.
Oh,
Two for the Road.
It's fantastic album.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Two for the Road, yeah.
His voice sounded destroyed the whole album. I was like, this
Steve
can't
Walsh?
be. Yeah. I don't know if his voice was just going out on him that night. I'm sorry to have a differing opinion than you, Arknolia, but I was not happy with that album.
I can understand that. I think I liked it because of one or two songs on it.
Oh, yeah, and that's fine. I'm not saying he wasn't good at all, but for a majority of the album, it sounded like someone who, lost their voice or something, was coming off of being sick.
Well, it could be that. Well, my favorite song on that album is actually an instrumental, Magnum Opus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, and there you go. You didn't have to worry about his voice in that one.
Yeah. And that song was absolutely fantastic on there.
Wasn't that was early 90s, wasn't it? I think it was early 90s.
Actually,
that was
I
live,
think it was
live at the
70s.
Whiskey. I'm thinking Live at the Whiskey. Okay.
Okay, because I was going to say, Two for the Road, I kind of remembered it being a pretty decent album.
Yeah, no, okay, so that's what it was. It was called Two for the Show.
Two for the Show. There we go. My bad.
So see, I'm thinking Live at the Whiskey when I talk about Steve Walsh's voice being wrecked.
Right.
My bad.
Okay,
now I see why we weren't agreeing here. I'm like, you didn't hear this?
Two for the Show was actually, that was one of the two cleaning ladies sitting in the aisles reading a program.
Yeah.
On the cover.
Yeah, I remember that there.
Yeah, that featured a lot of their big stuff from that period of time and was really an incredible live album for that time, especially because that was the 70s. But and they were still young. Their voices were still fresh. Exactly.
They were on their A game. Yep. By the time you hit the early 90s, I mean, they had pretty much passed their prime. They had their last top 40 hit was almost a decade behind them, and that doesn't mean you can't still sing. I mean, look at Clapton. He hasn't had a top 40 hit in 20 years, but he's still putting out great music. So, but just to the point of that, I mean,
I know. Eric Clapton came out with Father's Eyes in 1999.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think that was his last top 40. Unless something else off the Pilgrim hit, but I think it was only My Father's Eyes. Yeah. But kind of get off there. But Carry On, Wayward Son. Pointing over, Turn Dust in the Wind.
Yep.
I am looking at the list this time, but I mean,
People of the South Wind.
To know those songs. Say that again.
People of the South Wind.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I like some of their more obscure stuff, like Song for America. And there's a great one on that same album that's got some incredible lyrics. It's called Lamplight Symphony. It's kind of about an old man that's pining for his wife that has died. And like I said, it'll touch you when you hear the lyrics and listen to what it is. It's a 10-minute song, but it's worth the listen.
Well, I was about to say there's only 3 songs on each side. You talk about, you can't sneak too many songs in there when you're doing 10-minute songs.
Yeah, But that particular song has got some very poignant lyrics. I mean, you get to hear about this old man he sees the grave of where his wife died, and
Mhm.
she shows up, to just tell him that someday they'll be as one. It's a very, very touching
Very
song.
emotional song there.
But it's called Lamplight Symphony. If I was going to recommend one Kansas song, I would recommend that one. Although they got tons of others. Icarus Born on the Wings of Steel.
Yep.
Mysteries and Mayhem. I could go all day naming Kansas songs. Kansas, I would say they're my favorite American prog band, but there aren't that many of them. So
Right. I'll be in Topeka tomorrow, so I'll say hi to them for you.
there you go. Tell them they got a big fan in Texas.
All right. I don't know if they're even there now. I mean, they're from Topeka. It doesn't mean they are now, 30,
True.
40 years later.
True. And then we move from Kansas to King Crimson.
Oh, yeah, my favorite. As mentioned, we did a special on this one here weeks back just as well there. This is the band that really got me into playing guitar once again because I quit for a couple of years there out of disgruntlement. I heard Robert Fripp's stuff there on the second and third album, and I was like, wow, I like this. Then I started buying all the records like Islands, the first album, Starless and Bible Black, Lark's Tongues and Aspect, and Discipline as well. And it was like, that got me into playing guitar once again there.
Yeah, and that band has been through some iterations.
Many
The
of
only
them.
constant being
Robert
pretty
Fripp.
much Robert Fripp.
Yeah, and I guess they're back on tour once again. It's Music is Our Friend tour, 2021 there, and it's a 7-man lineup. It's our 7th lineup, and it features 3 drummers, by the way. There.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite eras of them is, besides the very first era, is the Adrian Belew years.
Yeah, with the 4th lineup from the 80s there, Discipline,
That
Beat,
guy could do some things with a guitar that you didn't even think were possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did that with Frank Zappa. He also played with Frank Zappa. He did the tour with the Talking Heads. He did his couple solo records of his own there. He worked with David Bowie's Lodger album just as well there.
He must have been pretty good at the guitar if they needed 3 drummers to keep up with him.
No.
Yeah.
Well, he's not with them currently. They got some guy named Jacko something up there, but either way, but for one time they were a double trio throughout the 90s there, believe it or not.
If you want to hear what some of the stuff he could do with a guitar, let's see, the best example is probably Dinosaur.
Mm.
And you can hear him do some things on the guitar that you're like, that sounds like strings.
Yep.
Well, yeah, technically they are strings, but I'm talking about
Right. Guitar synthesizer.
Yeah, he uses that extensively, a guitar synthesizer, and he can make sounds come out of the guitar that you weren't. I didn't even think that was possible.
And I guess that encouraged Robert Fripp to do get a guitar synthesizer of his own, which he used on the later King Crimson albums in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
One of them, The Construction of Light, another album that I highly recommend.
Oh yeah. The Crimson's another group that's got a lot of albums. They got 25 or 30, I think.
And plus, a lot of them on their own label, Discipline Global Mobile Records there, and get this, all the earlier catalogs, including the 70s and 80s, are released through that record label there. And the best thing about being on that record label is that you own the rights to your artwork and your recordings there, whereas the record company owns almost everything. They just pay you your royalties for the publishing, the writing, and the playing, and that was it, But they could do whatever they want those recordings.
Yeah. But I had another point, but it went away.
Oh, no.
The only thing I can really add in this is just from skimming through is they actually had a gold album with their their first album, In the Court of Crimson King, rather,
Yeah.
from 1969. That album actually went gold. They never saw
Wow.
another gold album after that.
No,
That was strange. That album's good though.
yeah, it was.
And
But yeah,
Greg Lake on vocals.
absolutely. And what's kind of funny is that people always refer to that album only. They look at the album cover, but they forget about other albums like Lizard and The Wake Up Dizzian, Starless and Bible Black that I mentioned, Red.
Yeah.
Those
What do you-
albums.
What do you think that drove the sales of that album to actually hit 500,000 with no real radio play at all other than the title single? Is it their
21st Century Schizoid Man? Plus, it's commonly called the first real prog album.
Yes.
Okay, so it's got a bit of a history to it where I guess what I find odd is usually when you see a band who comes out of the gate with a gold or platinum album and then never have another one, it's a one-hit wonder or something.
Yeah,
but they're
right.
not even that. So I was trying to figure out what's so significant about this album. So you're saying this is like the pioneer of prog rock, or one of
Pretty
them.
much, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Pretty much everybody I knew that was into prog had that album.
Yeah. Including me, including yours truly there, along with all their other ones.
Yeah, it's an interesting catalog.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this group was being praised by everybody from Alice Cooper to Jimi Hendrix to boot.
Yeah, in fact, there's a quote I heard somewhere that Hendrix, after one of their concerts, went backstage and told Fripp that was the best effing band he'd ever heard in his life.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's from Hendrix.
I was about to say that's something. It'd be like Michael Jordan telling you you're the best basketball player he's ever seen.
Yeah.
What? Really?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can imagine Clive Barker, when he first put it out, his Books of Blood series there, being complimented by one of the bigwigs in that genre, Stephen King. And he did, because there's a new name in horror, and his name is Clive Barker.
Wow. I guess we
Good
better
stuff.
kind of hurry if we're going to get to the Led Zeppelin thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tried to say it discreetly, but I got maybe 5 minutes here if we want to.
Okay, we got to definitely
I don't want
talk
to steer
about
the
this
show.
album.
I don't want to be the reason this show
Well,
gets
no,
steered.
let's go ahead and do it because there's not that many Ks left.
Yeah, all right, dear. We got to definitely talk about that album because as of today, it came out today in 1971, officially 50 years old today. And we all know, and we know the songs like the back of our hand, Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, Stairway to Heaven, their signature song, Misty Mountain Hop, Four Sticks, Going to California, and When the Levee Breaks. And we know that album, basically, I got the Wikipedia up on here. And, it's basically one of their biggest albums. We all know the cover and the gatefold of that album there. The cover of that.
Diomedes.
Yep, absolutely there.
Got to point out that it's technically not called Led Zeppelin 4. That's just the name it's developed over time. It's actually untitled. There
Yeah, I
is
remember. Yeah, it was weak.
There's not even a catalog number.
Exactly,
if I remember
and the
right.
concept behind it, there was no information on the front or the gatefold of that album. The idea basic was to see if the music alone would sell. And
When
of
they
course
called it
it
corporate
did.
suicide, the record label was like, "We won't do it," and they said, "Well, we won't give you the music if you don't let us do it this way." And they said, "Well, shoot yourselves in."
And they did, absolutely. It became one of their best-selling albums, shipping over 37 million copies worldwide, and it turned out to be one of the best-selling albums in the U.S., while critics regularly have placed it high and mighty on their list of greatest albums of all time.
Second time tonight, we're telling a story of how the record label should just shut the fuck up and let the musician be the musician
Precisely.
and be the creator and
Yeah.
do what their vision is. It's their vision. You're supposed to sell it. Let them do their vision. You sell it and shut up.
Absolutely there. I like the way the Metallica's old management would jump down Elektra Records case when they were signed to them, tell them, stay the fuck away from this band, and in return you will get hit records in exchange.
Yeah. See what happened?
Yep.
How many radio hits does this album have?
Lots.
It depends on your definition of radio hits.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because
Well, I
we
mean,
all know.
if you're talking about songs that hit the charts and was played on radio, I mean, I'd say 3: Black Dog,
Yeah.
Stairway, and Rock and Roll.
Yeah. Sometimes
Oh,
they'll be.
what about When the Levee Breaks?
That
I
often
know
gets
that one.
played a lot of times on the radio just as well. There, that
Right,
actually
but it didn't like chart, or it wasn't played in its day. It wasn't played on the radio as a hit. It just was quietly released to the radio later on because it's Led Zeppelin 4. Everyone knows all the songs on it, whether it was on the radio or not at this point.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter.
Now here's
and an interesting
Alright.
story for When the Levee Breaks. When Def Leppard's drummer lost his arm.
yeah,
Rick Allen.
Rick Allen, yeah.
Yeah. To show the group he could still play the drums, he played When the Levee Breaks.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I have an interesting story
that
about When the
convinced him.
Levee Breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So I was watching Joe Cronin's show, and then he went on to the Purple Place, and I watched him at the Purple Place, and then he ended the show. So I was like, I was like, oh yeah, like we got in this little group, and we rated another one of these streams on the Purple Place, and so it was like this young couple, they were smoking crystal meth to
Holy
the
shit.
song When the
Wow.
Levee Breaks,
Wow.
That
and
would
like
keep you on that that website long.
Wow.
yeah, it was like an unofficial music video for me. So like,
Wow.
that made me like the song. So whenever I hear that song, I think of the Purple Place stream I was watching.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's
and Lauren,
interesting.
here's a little something there on the Levy on that song. It basically it opens with Bonham's uncompiled drum in there, which was recorded at the lobby of the place that they recorded the album at, Headley Grange. It's used in two Bayer Dynamic M160 microphones, which were hung from the flight of stairs. Output from these were passed to a limiter, a Benson Echo Rec. I think I pronounced that right, which is a delay effects unit, was also used. Page recalled he had to record the track at earlier sessions, but it had sounded like the usual locations around the lobby gave the ideal ambience for the drum sound. Now, that introduction, the drumming there, would later be sampled by the Beastie Boys for their song Rhymin' and Stealin' for their first record there. And of course, apparently Robert's vocals, Robert Plant, apparently had some sort of I'm not so sure what kind of effect it was, but it had some sort of a flange effect there. In fact, towards the end, you can hear some of the guitars, switch from the left channel to the right channel and so on there a lot of times there. And this was towards the end of the track there. And the track itself is actually slowed down a bit there.
Interesting.
Yeah, the same thing with the Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles.
Wow.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing to point out about this album is how you almost got a completely different album than what we got. There was originally a whole different set of tracks laid out for the album. And when they went on tour and came back from their spring tour, took another listen to it, and they were like, this is not what we want to put out. So they actually remixed and redid the whole album before actually releasing it.
Yeah.
So you almost got a completely different thing than what you got, and thank God they did it. Whatever it was that they didn't like, obviously they improved on.
My guess is some of that stuff showed up on Coda and later albums, one or two songs here and there.
Yeah, most likely there. And we also
they did. They did had several songs that were released, I believe, on EPs later on that were meant for the album but just wouldn't fit.
Yeah, or B-side singles like Hey Hey My My. My Hey Hey.
Actually, you're right. No, it wasn't EPs. It was B-sides.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because around the 70s, there was no such thing as EPs until later on in the 80s there. And we also,
Well, I mean,
we also got,
you're right. You're
and
right.
we also
I
got,
was just getting my terminology
yeah,
mixed.
true, yeah. And we also got to point out the satanic backmasking of Stairway to Heaven. There was a lot. There was a couple of YouTube videos there, with the song backwards, with the detailing with the on the screen there, which is being said there. We all know, "Here's to my sweet Satan" and all that stuff there. And of course, according to many people there, when it goes towards the end, when that's played backwards, a couple people reportedly had to take the headphones off because they were in shock of what they heard. I played that to one of my best friends, and back in Roseville, Michigan. He was like, "Holy cow, dude! Whoa!" And apparently, what it was, that would later spark all the rumors that Zeppelin were Satanists, and do you think the members of Led Zeppelin sold their souls to the devil?
I don't know. I think if you listen to enough stuff backwards, back in that time, it was very easy. All you had to do was put your hand on the album and spin it back the other way at your own speed and listen for something.
Or, I mean, let's be honest. Back then, you just pop a little acid thing, and then you would hear.
You hear
Yeah,
whatever
that's
you
true.
want.
Yeah, that's true. There.
I mean, come on, compare it. Like, bro, if you listen to the stuff now, like that shit sounds so wholesome.
Yeah.
And everything, the classics.
Yeah.
That's why we call them the classics.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
And
maybe this was the remixing that they needed to do to make the album great.
Yeah. And the reason I brought it up is because, there was a long time rumor that I don't know if it was actually true or not, but when you look at what happened later on, it kind of makes you wonder, Apparently there was a story that Plant, Page, and Bottom, went to visit a satanic priest, and I guess he signed some dotted line or this and that, to get fame and fortune, to be a multi-successful band, which eventually they did become, when you think about it there. But later on down their years, things would start happening to them. They were robbed of thousands of dollars while they were on stage in Madison Square Garden, where the song Remains the Same movie was being filmed.
Is this all from the backmasking claims, or is this?
No, this was other theories that happened. These are actual events that happened to them. Robert Plant would be, he would get injured in the auto wreck in Greece at one point. At one for a short while, he had amnesia there. He recorded one of their albums, Presence, while still in a wheelchair there with a busted up leg. His son would later die a couple years later of a still unknown illness. A maniac was reportedly out to kill Jimmy Page at one point there. Apparently, the police got on that case there. And years on down the line, John Bonham would later drink himself to death at Jimmy Page's house, which was previously owned by Aleister Crowley. And Page at that time was getting into all that occult stuff there.
So what you're listing out is basically the air quote curse of Led Zeppelin, like they were just doomed with tragedy.
Something like that. Well, basically,
kind of like Def Leppard. I mean, Def Leppard was they lost not only a human being but an arm also, not to mention all the various setbacks. So it kind of reminds me of that story of all the trials and tribulations Def Leppard.
We also got to include, Leonard Skinner, the Allman Brothers band there. They had some tragedies with them, their realms there. But I think a lot of people at that time, when all this stuff was going on, were telling them, see what happens when you mess with the devil? See what happens when you do that kind of shit there? When you play with the devil, you get your fingers burned. Nah.
Here's my thing with that, Earl, is how many songs of Led Zeppelin's could you play backwards and hear satanic shit too?
Not that I know of. That's the thing there.
Just one, right?
There's
only one that you can even make the claims.
That's one everybody takes. So that's I wasn't there when they recorded, so I don't know.
Why did they stop there? Why wouldn't they do this all the time?
That's
the
a good
thing that
point
gets
there.
me about all this backwards
masking.
Let me try English. I hear it's a good language. At any rate, if this is occurring, how come the song can sound so clear when you play it forward, and yet when you play it backwards, you hear other words.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
It could be a coincidence. You could hear some weird stuff. Eventually, if you do this with enough songs, eventually you're going to find something that sounds right. It's just like with conspiracies. If you look for one, you're going to find it. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there are truly some out there too. So I don't want to downplay that. But when it comes to this, I mean, yeah, if they would have had a whole catalog of songs that were this way, then you'd be onto something. But I mean, you want to talk about weird shit like GWAR. They didn't just do weird shit in one music video or in one song. GWAR was always a weird fucking band.
Yeah, and they still are.
You can make those claims on them. It's very evident you can make those claims. But one song playing it backwards, why didn't they just do it forwards?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people like to rely on that one particular song and stick with that without looking at the others, you know.
And not only that, when you're playing the song forward, how's the backmasking affecting you anyway?
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way,
find it? Are you the Satanist? Because you're the one who found it when you spun it backwards. Were you looking for something?
And why were you spinning it backwards? Did it not sound good enough forward?
Yeah,
you
know,
fuck up your record and your needle. That's what.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to fuck up your needle. That's the way to go there. But then again, I don't know if the Beatles were attempting the same thing with number nine. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. You know, I don't think they were trying to achieve that either.
Oh heck! You just reminded me.
Yeah.
When you're talking about playing records backwards, you're going to screw up your needle.
Yep.
That's part of a George Carlin routine.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
I don't think I heard that either.
He's talking about you play so and so backwards, you're going to screw up your needle.
I remember Cheech and Chong, made a little joke on one of their earlier records, and then Chong was like, "I remember playing Black Sabbath at 78 speed, and what happened? I saw God."
The stairway to heaven became the escalator to heaven, and boy, was it fast.
Yeah.
Well, but that's it. I do have to go, guys.
All right,
I'm sorry,
Derek.
but I thank you for having me on. This was
we thank you for being on, Drew. We do. We really do appreciate it.
Come again.
Yeah, do.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, but the last thing I do want to say about Stairway and the looking for lyrics, like you said about the number 9 thing and such, you're going to find it if you look for it. Look at Push by Matchbox 20. Mm-hmm. I want to push you around. They said, oh, he's promoting beating women. What? Right. Listen to the lyrics. Listen for what it's meant. The Verve Pipe, the Freshman. They say, I took a week's worth of Valium and slept, but everyone said that he was saying slapped her. And it's like, chill out, listen to the song. If you don't know what the words are, pull out the lyric book and chill the fuck out. Yeah. But with that said, thank you guys.
All right, there.
Have a good evening. And,
all right, thank you once again.
Cheers. And we'll be here again Thursday.
All right, there, if you're available. All right, there. Gatekeeper.
No, actually, I'll be on the road. But yeah.
Oh, okay, there.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You
good
too.
Talking to you too, Arknolia. It's been a while, man.
Yeah,
Hope
it
all
has
well.
been.
All right, there.
All right, good night, guys.
All right, bye-bye. Gatekeeper Drew from Derailed News and Podcasts. Look for them on YouTube there. They broadcast every Sunday evening there. Definitely go check them out. Yeah, absolutely there. All right. So, go ahead, Keith.
Well, I want to say something about the satanic music.
Yeah.
Like when you join the Illuminati, like soon after you join, you have to kill your best friend, and as a human sacrifice, and then after that, you make a sad song about how your best friend's dead.
Huh?
Hey, where did you send him that?
No, I researched the Illuminati in 2016 and 2017.
Real fucking great.
Oh shit.
Even Eminem, he killed his best friend Proof, and then he had to make a sad song.
Whoa! Where did you get that from?
Well, the internet.
Don't believe anything Don't believe everything you see on the internet, Keith.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's a pattern with these artists joining the Illuminati. They have to kill their best friend and make a sad song about it.
We got to look that up. That's for sure to find out.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how they kill him and not get caught.
Maybe the police are part of the Illuminati as well. I don't know.
Well, with that being said, Rat Maniacs is coming up next with me, Keith.
Mm-hmm.
Special guest, maybe Jake Bars is going to call in.
All right, there.
Dive to the Astroworld thing over there.
All right, yeah. Okay, so I guess this ends episode 75 of our series there. We'll continue to definitely continue with our A to Z list on this coming Thursday, same time. And thank you once again to Gatekeeper Drew from Derailed News and Podcasts for being a guest tonight. Shout out to YR, Keith Barber, and to you, Arknolia. For all 4 of us, all 4 or 5 of us actually,